and they had this white grand piano in there, and no one was allowed in there. None of the kids were allowed in that room. And if you want to give a kid a lifelong obsession and a drive to make music, you have their white grandparents say that you're not allowed anywhere near that piano. Like that will put a drive in you. And like it will make it when you push a key down on the piano, it will mean a different thing to you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Tonight is about hybridity. It's about the way one person can hold multitudes. It's about looping and layering, poetry and beat, storytelling and sound. And it's also about community. At the center of tonight is our incredible fresh sound artist, Ahamefule J. Oluo. Give it up for Aham. He's an internationally acclaimed trumpet player, composer, and comedian. He is a solo performance artist whose work lives at the intersection of music, memoir, comedy, and theatrical experimentation. Their solo show, The Things Around Us, is deeply personal, musically layered exploration of memory, empathy, complexity, and identity, and it's a powerful example of what hybrid performance can do. What I love about The Things Around Us, and I will nerd out on this all day, is that it begins with one person, just one story, one body on stage, and somehow it expands to feel orchestral, communal, and expansive. The one becomes the many, and that's why tonight matters, because Aham is also not alone in that practice. Boston is filled with artists who are building entire sonic and poetic words from a singular voice. Artists who build community from what might look like a solo act. So tonight, we get to talk about that. How does one sound become many? And how does solo performance generate community? What does the future of hybrid performance look like, especially in our city? We are so grateful to be joined by, at the far end, in a gorgeous cream outfit, the amazing Tim Hall, who is a Boston, Tim Hall. Boston-based saxophonist, poet, and live looping solo artist whose work bridges jazz, hip-hop, neo-soul, and spoken word. Tim creates layered, deeply personal performances exploring Blackness, resilience, and care, while also mentoring the next generation as a professor at Berklee College of Music. And then right next to me, we have the amazing Cliff Notez. Cliff is an award-winning multimedia artist and musician whose work moves fluidly across hip-hop, jazz, folk, soul, and film. Give it up for Cliff. And then center in the beautiful white and black is Shea. Amanda. Amanda is a Boston-based spoken word artist, poet, and cultural leader whose work blends poetry with hip-hop, jazz, and experimental sound, a multi-time Boston Music Award winner, and the founder of Activating Artivism. So let's jump in. Many of you make work that doesn't fit into a single box. Music, poetry, storytelling, performance, looping, spoken word. How do you think about genre boundaries in your own work? Is hybridity a strategy, a necessity, or something else entirely? Let's start there before I ask the second part of that question.
For me personally, I don't see anything as different than anything else ever. Everything in the world is the same as everything else in the world. So, I approach cooking the same way that I approach making music, the same way I, approach writing something. And that is to have an emotional and sometimes embodied connection to the person I'm either feeding or talking to, or and the delivery changes, but the message is the same. So I've always been focused on the emotional message, and then whatever is the best way to get that. And sometimes what I found by working in the mediums I work in, storytelling and comedy and music, sometimes I'll have one idea that I can illuminate from multiple directions, and then you can see like the whole object. There's a feeling that the words can express part of the feeling, and then the music can express another part, and there's just like, by the end you just get a richer, more three-dimensional idea of that emotion that I'm trying to take from me and give to you.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I've never seen genre, or that sounds terrible if you think about, like, I don't see color. But I don't see genre. I don't see genre. I just see world. I think the problem with me, it's never been a problem. It's just how I've always thought, and how I've always experienced art. I'm thinking about an entire world when I'm thinking about a piece of art. And that entire world includes, like, what does it visually look like? What does it musically sound like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And I've always just been so controlling of that world that I needed to be the one who creates every part of that world. And most of the time when I make a film or when I make a piece of music, I'm oftentimes always thinking about every other piece of art that goes with it. So it's just always kind of been natural that everything just kind of comes out. And if there isn't something that I can do, it means that I'm spending the next 3 to 6 months to learn that thing on how to do it.
Tim, do you have any reflections on that?
Yes, I look at this question as we all exist as multitudes. We have multiple identities, and I don't think that I intentionally thought about my hybridity as an artist and performer until these last 8 to 10 years. In my commitment to myself as an artist, I would say these last 10 years, I've stepped into another level of ownership as an artist and said, hey, I want this to really provide for me in a particular way. And with that, I think it challenged me to think about, how do I exist as an artist? Like, what are the lanes that I want to choose or pick? And I struggled for a very long time in the, like, okay, I'm not a singer, all the things I'm not. And I think in that activity or processing, it also eventually had me then loop to all the things that I am. And I think once I got to that part of my processing, it liberated me in a beautiful way, in that I could be all of these things, and I'm intelligent and intentional enough to search for that in the journey. So I think I've been, in particular to these last 5 years, where I've been working on music and projects and creating and putting out things, and trying to continue to, like, solidify how do I, like, promote myself. I've learned to accept my hybridity and look at it as a gift and as a tool, and it's allowed me to say, like, oh wow, there's a lot of things that I can do, and there's two heads to that coin, in that you can do a lot of things, and thankfully I've had a lot of community and mentorship that's helped me refine what that looks like, in that I can have a level of direction within the hybridity. There's a purpose and an intention, a point of view, a message that I can be consistent with and dive deeper into, while exploring how the vehicles in which that message can connect and exist in my artistry.
I feel like I'm gonna copy what my but they all gave really great answers, and I resonate deeply with all of that. I think for me, I do see color.
I think I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean? Frequencies, when we think about music, we think about colors, right? Like reds, blues, every color kind of is innately rooted into something of a feeling. And I think for me, growing up with a dad that loves music, he always like had all these genres, right? So to ignore them, I want to say is really difficult for me, because I know that in this industry, we're supposed to be in these types of genre boxes or just in boxes in general. But I don't approach my work like that at all. I think the power of storytelling is that it's like life, it's not linear. So you can tell a story like I will tonight probably and go all the way around the world and then come back to the actual question. So for me, it's really based on emotion. What am I trying to portray? What is the emotion that I feel in my art at that moment? And what do I want to give out to the audience? What do I want them to feel? So that's how I feel like I approach the art. Yeah.
That's beautiful. The second half of the question was, when does blending forms feel liberating? But what I'm hearing back is that there's innate liberation in form blending. So I guess I would ask, do you ever feel challenged by the responsibility or the expectation to blend forms? It can be no.
Nah.
I mean, what I'll say, like, there can be like a weird thing that happens where, I feel like I've worked, so I've done stand-up comedy for 20 years. I've been, playing gigs since I was 16. I'm 43 right now. I've been doing all this stuff for a long time, but I think that there's some way in which like in Seattle, I don't feel fully like in the jazz community. I don't feel fully in the stand-up community. I feel like everyone kind of views me as this other thing. And I think that, inevitably, like if you do a lot of things, it can limit some aspects of virtuosity because time is limited. You can only do so much in the time that you have. So if you're working on 8 things, your progress on those 8 things might be a little bit slower. And I think that there's a way, like in those, like the way that people get stuck in genres, they get stuck into like, this is what jazz is, this is what stand-up is, this is what that is. They can sometimes look at someone who's bringing in a wealth of experience in a lot of different ways, but maybe playing giant steps in all 12 keys isn't really like their thing. Maybe that's not what they're great at, and they'll get really dismissed by the hierarchy of that specific genre.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to that, I think you started to bring up the point of, I mean, there's always that term of like jack of all trade, master of none. But I feel like the challenge only comes when we start putting in societal and like time expectations within things.
Yeah.
Because they never say it's not master of none. It's just it's going to take a little bit of a while to master all of those things. Mm-hmm. And like D'Angelo's one of my heroes and was able to take his time to make this masterful product. So I think when I let go of the societal expectation of like, you've got to put something out now, where's the album? And when you're able to just make art for yourself first, I think then that lets go of a lot of that challenge that may come about.
I love that answer. I was literally just in an Uber on my way here having that conversation about who do we really make art for? Are we making it for the audience or are we making it for ourselves? And I was like, I write for myself. Ever since I was 8 years old, I was in my bedroom writing in my journal for me. So to try to bend that to the masses or appeal or appease the masses, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't.
You know more about your work than they do, so.
Yeah,
That part.
Yeah, and I think I've spent less time trying to unpack whether or not my hybridity is, I think I've spent more time on like the comparison aspect of things and trying to liberate myself from the comparison process of like, oh, well, I'm not this and I'm not this. And I think once I focused on seeking out discovery and like paying attention to and finding where I'm finding like the pathways for success in my career and as an artist that does like spoken word and music. Once I like focused on searching to find that in the world, it became more apparent. Like the comparison and the imposter syndrome slowly melted away because I was like, oh, I see myself there and I see myself there and I see myself there. And I'm appreciative for this artist for being able to represent this and give me a sense of validation for like, oh, people want poetry and music. I don't have to just exist only as a poet, or I don't have to be like, I'm not the 12 keys, like playing over all of the changes, bebopper, saxophonist. I never have been that. And it's allowed me to like recognize the gifts that I do bring to the table and the things that make my work beautiful, and even tell myself like, yo, I'm dope. People already have examples of people liking what I do. I don't need to be another voice saying that it's not good enough. Like I have the validation. I need to accept it. Like I need to be comfortable being like, oh no, people love what I do, and I need to love that and trust that like what I make is enough. How about I just go focus on experimenting?
How do you start building community in that process? Because I feel like we're getting at something that's a challenge, right? You kicked us off by saying, I'm not fully in this community. I'm not fully in this community. As you're a solo performer, developing something that is so unique to you, and something that we've been saying this whole week that you've been here is go towards what you do and serve the art. The art is your boss. As you're seeking to serve that art and you're building something so unique, how do you start to build community when you're working with the individual and on an individual journey while being deeply bedded in various communities? I know everybody on stage here has so many different communities that they're a part of. How do you play with collaborators and collective spaces while building and maintaining a solo practice and finding yourself there?
Cliff did not lie. These questions are deep. Maybe I should have looked at them. I was like, I'm here for an organic conversation. I'm like, wait, this is very introspective.
I was like, Cliff, read these questions on the way here.
She was like, they're very deep. I was like, indeed they are. Should have been in the bathroom doing my homework. That's a really good question.
But it's nothing that you're not inherently doing. Like I look at you all, and you are so incredible, and you all move through such spaces with confidence and ease and create these amazing pieces of art that the nuts and bolts of navigation is just so fascinating.
Gina, I appreciate you, but I am faking all of it. Confidence, what's that? I think for me, it's just staying true to yourself and being rooted in your authenticity. I think that even if people don't understand what you're offering as a solo performer, they're gonna get an experience. And I don't stick around for their opinions after the show. I'm kind of like leaving. No, I'm just But for me, I think it's just going into spaces where art is wanted, not necessarily where there's a box. So, I mean, I've done so many shows with Tim Hall over here. It's like, you could probably agree, we're doing spoken word, we're doing the music, we're doing our art. And like, I think what brings audiences to us is that they can feel that we care and that we love what we do. So for me, it's just, I'm not necessarily seeking out audiences. I'm just kind of going where art is appreciated. I love that you're clapping.
I think if I talk through the thought process of one of the latest companies that I founded recently, it'll start to make sense. But I'll start with something simple, and the idea of I can build for myself and I can gain, and then I can also build for all and I can gain more. And I think the building for all has benefited me more than building just for myself. So to think about that, I started this company called We Black Folk about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So everybody know We Black Folk? It's amazing. I'm obsessed with it.
You should check us out. We have a show sometime soon. Oh, PBD Essex Museum next week. But the thought process behind When We Black Folk was I was seeing my music. My music is always shifting and moving in so many different directions, and I'm always working on multiple projects at once. And I'm always going to be working on multiple things at once. But when I saw that I started working on this folk album for myself, building for myself. And I really loved what I was doing. But then when I started to connect with my peers who were in the folk community, I started realizing some gaps and recognized some gaps. And at first I'm like, all right, if I want to embed myself in this community, we need to be fixing these gaps for all. And then once I am done building all those gaps for myself for everybody, then I can start to fit myself in that space as well. So that's how I'm kind of thinking about these things, is let's build it bigger and larger for everybody else. And then if I have a tiny little space in there, that's good for me too.
I love that.
Mic drop. That's an amazing answer.
You know, I'm kind of a loner. Like I really, I live in a log cabin, 35 minutes from a gas station, 2.5 hours from any major city. And
That sounds like a dream.
it's pretty nice. You know, and I really, there's a way in which I'm kind of, in one aspect, I'm pulled out of community. I mean, and I have my own community of family that I live with and things like that, and people that are close to me. But you know, I'm personally just a very private person, and you know, that's the life that I enjoy. But then when it comes time for me to interact with community, it's either like, so say doing solo performance, you know, I always, when I'm making any kind of show, at the end of the show, I want to be honest with myself, and the feeling that I want to have is that I gave the audience something instead of taking their time. Now, I don't want that thing to be the thing that they thought it was going to be, or the thing that they thought that they wanted, or anything like that. But I want, and I think I'm generally successful at this, the audience to feel like this was something for them, not about me. That my performance is about their life, and because that's why we perform for other people. Even though, you know, I create it. You have to. I think you have to create it for yourself. You have to create it based on what you like in your own sense. But I mean, that's why you bring it out there, because it impacts people's life, and sometimes it impacts it, you know, in a really deep way. And I've had, you know, in the many years I've been doing this, I've had so many instances of people telling me the ways in which their life was deeply affected. So that's one way I like to engage in community, is to have that relationship be a giving one. And the other way is when I am working with other people, when I am working with other musicians. My first stage show had, you know, a 17-piece orchestra in it. My second show had, you know, 12-piece, and they were big productions that had a lot of people. And, you know, I don't do something big unless I can pay people. I don't ask for favors. I don't ask anyone to do anything for me for free, ever. That's a rule that I have. I pay for rehearsals. I bring donuts. Like those are the things that I pride myself on. And, you know, like my first show, we brought 21 people to New York, and 21 of my favorite musicians from Seattle. And they all came to New York. They were all properly compensated. They all were playing a musical role that was built really for them, and they had worked on it for a long time, and there was loyalty in the group, and there was a mandate that everyone treated everyone with respect, and there was kind of a zero tolerance policy around that. And you know, we did that, and the show was wonderful, and it got great reviews and stuff, and that's great. But there are so many people on that trip that still to this day, and that was in 2016, are like, that was like the best professional experience I've had. And that means so much, because your job is like so much of your life. That's like, it can mean so much to you, and it takes so much of your time. So I like to, because I don't really engage in community and in person in a lot of ways. Like I like to engage in community by just doing the right thing,
Yeah. I think that the intersection of community and art is a A to Z topic for me, in that I don't exist without community. And art at its rawest form is, to me, indigenous, in that art is used for survival, communication, celebration, grieving. It's something that I've learned through oral tradition. So there's no part of me and my existence as an artist that isn't connected to community, that isn't connected to lineage, that isn't connected to cultural expression, cultural survival, that isn't connected to archival work and sustainability and storytelling and future existence of my people, my life, my family, and so forth. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I say I'm just so privileged all the time to grow up in a Black city, to grow up in a city that I was able to exist in and see myself in at every point. I'm thankful that I grew up in a city that valued art and valued it within the youth and had programs for me to learn about myself and explore myself. And I'm very thankful that I had Black instructors at a very young age who were able to draw the connections between my African heritage and the art forms of dance and movement and step. And having that education, I think I've carried that with me, which I think is the whole point. It's why my instructors and teachers shared that. They carried it from the individuals who taught it to them, and I have continued to carry that with me. And the Z part, A to Z part, is that, I tell my students, and it's a thing that I say to anyone, but like, I get to wake up every day and every week doing what I love to do and making money with my friends. Yeah. My hope as an instructor is that you can do that too, that I can help you build the tools to like exist and thrive and live from the thing that you love to do and do it with the people that you love as well. So yeah.
I mean, important to say though too, like we had many years where we were not making money together.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, hands down. But I think that in that we weren't alone. Mm-hmm. Like we were together. Like there's a point I think also where you can have so many L's that you don't feel purposeful anymore, and you might change or pivot or shift and no longer seek out that thing that once lit you up. And I think because of community, I haven't succumbed to my light dimming. Like my community is the reason why my light is still lit. And like, I need that. I can't exist without that.
That was amazing. Thank you. One of my favorite things, and maybe this is because Cliff and Tim read the questions in the car on the way here, but when you segue so perfectly into the next thing that I want to ask you, which is specifically I want to talk about voice, because each of you are use the voice as an instrument in dissimilar but also sometimes similar ways in your practice, and also in terms of a lot of I know the kind of curation that some of these artists do. There's some very interesting programming of certain voices. So I'm focusing on the voice as the instrument, spoken word, lyricism, musical language with the voice. And you use it to articulate personal and cultural experience. How do you think, Tim, exactly kind of what you were just starting to mine, which was so beautiful, how is the vocal instrument, the instrument of your voice, both an instrument, but also the carrier of identity, of memory, and of your community?
Yeah,
I needed to read these questions. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's I think in the answer that I shared in the indigeneity, like I learned how I was a part of a step team in middle school, and step is an art form that is an African tradition, and learning about things like ring shouts and other sacred rituals. Ring shouts are community, family of individuals in a circle using their bodies and other instruments and voices to celebrate, to mourn, to transcend. And for me, that lineage has like connected to me learning, really discovering my artistic craft in the church, and in shouting and speaking in tongues and praising and worshiping. Like, these are all things that are culturally significant to me in jazz, hip hop, R&B, poetry, folk, all of that for me originates there. So I think in that, like, it's more than, I think, just the art or the voice as sharing the stories. I think it's all together. It's existence. Like, there isn't a world in which I think those two are separate. It's all embedded within the body, within culture, within lineage, and it's probably also why I feel like I love being Black, being an artist too, because we invented this shit.
You say that?
So what do you think about the relationship then between the spoken word aspect of the creation of I just keep thinking of that phrase that you said, like, the art is the boss, whatever the boss is that for that project, and the music. How do you determine in the process this is something that feels like a song, a poem, a story, or something in between, and especially when you're working with the voice and also additional instrumentation?
Well, for me, I don't make any decisions in the moment. I just go.
Yeah.
Going. And that's how I'm able to make so much art. And that's sometimes a problem because it's too much art. But allowing myself to just let my brain go and trust that I know how to ride a bicycle, because I've rode a bicycle my whole life, the bicycle being art, frees a lot of that thought process. And there's a poet named Allen Ginsberg that I really live by his philosophy in writing, and just creation as a whole, where you create first and edit later and go back and edit later. And with that too, because I create so much art, I'm oftentimes just like trusting what my mind and my body is telling me to do. So like I'll make 1.5 million pieces in a week. But then like the next week, if there's a specific piece that keeps calling me back to it, then I know that it's something else that somebody else will feel as well, because it keeps calling me back to it. So I'm just trusting where my mind is leading me to, unless I'm on a deadline for something else.
That's the commissioned art, yes? I totally agree with everything that Cliff just said and what Tim just said. I think for me, somebody asked me the other day, like, what did I fall in love with first? Was it music or spoken word? And I'm like, I feel like they were at the same time. When I listen to music, I listen for lyricism. I'm listening to what the song is saying, what the messaging is. And I feel the same way about poetry. I think, to piggyback off of what Cliff was saying, it's a calling. It's the same way how you kind of know what pieces are going to actually make it to the stage. Because I'm sure if you're making 1.5 million pieces, not everything is going to be in a performance. Am I correct?
No, not at all.
I mean, that would be a long, dope show, though, to see. I'm not.
Nobody wants to perform that long. Nobody wants to sit around for a show that long.
So for me, it's more like it's a higher calling to me. I always think that it's a spiritual experience between what's going to be performed out loud in spoken word or what's going to be attributed to music. And sometimes it's a little bit of like discovery and exploration of experimenting. Sometimes, and Tim has played behind me before with spoken word, and I've like, oh, maybe this would sound cool behind it, or maybe we could give it a jazz feeling, or even like a gospel feeling, or even opera. You know, it's just bending and just experimenting. So for me, it's just whatever it calls to do. And even when it calls for that thing, understanding that my art is living, like it's a living, breathing thing. Pieces don't retire us, we retire pieces. So I constantly tell my students to always go back to their work that they feel like is old, because any artist that you love to see is always gonna do like the deep cuts and the songs that you really, really like, even if it's 10, 20 years old. For them, it might not be pleasurable all the time because they're like, I played this 50 living times. But, you know, I think that's what the beauty of our art and being an artist is, that we can change it up. It could be from a cappella to slight percussion, or you can add a horn in it's just playing around with it. So for me, I just let it be what it is and whatever spirit is saying to do at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about something that seems unrelated at first, but so my grandparents on my mom's side are white, and they were kind of problematic in certain ways, but my family is from Kansas and they don't talk about things. So like there are things like my grandma and her sister, both their initials are KKK, but we don't like know it. My family's like, oh, it's just a coincidence. You sure? You sure it's just a coincidence? You know, like they weren't like overtly racist when I was growing up, but like they didn't like who my mom married. You know, they said for other reasons. You know, it was very complicated, and they could be very cold, and they were very unsupportive financially because they felt that my mom had made bad choices, so she should suffer from those bad choices. And you know, my mom didn't make bad choices, by the way. So there's my grandparents had this room in their house. There was my grandpa built a lot of things. He was an engineer. He worked for Boeing and NASA, and but he also built all the furniture in his house. And he had this room where there's like beautiful white couch that went around the whole perimeter of the room, and it, like all this ornate furniture that he made himself, and some of it were like antiques that they bought. And they had this white grand piano in there, and no one was allowed in there. None of the kids were allowed in that room. And if you want to give a kid a lifelong obsession and a drive to make music, you have their white grandparent say that you're not allowed anywhere near that piano. Like that will put a drive in you. And like it will when you push a key down on the piano, it'll mean a different thing to you. And so sometimes where something comes from isn't a direct. There's so many kids that like their parents are like, come on, how is your piano lesson there? Like, I don't want to do that. Like, why are you forcing this on me? Where I would have killed for it. And similarly, in another way, like when it comes to words, I have a very, very terrible anxiety disorder. I have panic attacks all the time. It's something I take medicine for now, and I've spent years of therapy and working on it and getting better at it. But when I was a kid, it was really, really difficult, and it really interfered with my ability to engage socially in any kind of normal way. And I didn't have friends. It was very, I really did not feel like I could talk. Like when I was in a social situation, I didn't feel like I could talk. Like I physically didn't feel like I could talk. I never interrupt anyone. Like it's just like I don't know how to. Like if I'm talking and someone starts talking, I stop talking. Like I have a hard time with the random nature of how social interactions are supposed to go. So for me, stand-up comedy, the ability to write down everything that you're going to say, You're going to get on stage with a microphone. No one else is allowed to talk. You say you say these perfect things that you crafted. And my whole childhood, I really felt like I'm the funniest person I know and no one knows it. No one knows it but me. And so, it's this opportunity to bring out this part of you that is not your everyday self, that is not this thing that no one told me I should do stand-up ever. No one had ever said that to me in my life before I did it. But I did it and I was able to do it and it worked. So obviously it was there. Obviously it was real. But I just think that anything that comes out of you, the path that it comes through is such a unique path for everything.
I almost teared up when you were talking because you went into your childhood and I was like, oh, that's exactly why I started writing, because I couldn't communicate my feelings, but I could definitely do it on a piece of paper. So I'm so glad that you named that.
Similar, music was my first love, and I thankfully was supported. I think for me at a very early age in my practice, I thankfully had big brothers, big homies that would really mentor the young cats, the young musicians. And in high school, I'm getting told to come to the bar and sit in the back and just watch them play. But for me, I think I learned at a very young age that I can also make money doing this thing. I already loved attention. I love to perform. Y'all are gonna look at me. Oh, cool. I love attention. So, and I can get paid to do this. People are gonna be looking at me and thinking, "Oh, you sound cool." By what I say and what I play, I think for me, I was able to make a living from, and I learned that at such a young age, seeing other young Black men doing the thing that they love to do, and they were making money from it. So I think I learned that to be able to hone the gift and hone the craft would also take me places. Being in a place like Detroit, where we had one of the highest murder rates in the country, where I'm going to high school and seeing my peers give birth to babies and we're kids still. There are so many other messages. If I didn't have a music program, I was walking across gang territory. It gave me an outlet and a place to exist and learn and see that oh, there's beauty in this, and I can outlive my friends. I can go and have a life for myself. So it gave me another level of purpose, and then recognizing I can make a living of it helped me focus. So I think that the gift is a calling. The decision to make a living from it is a choice. And I was able to, I think, have guidance in choosing, I know that one day I want to be living off of my art. So I'm going to choose that path and find a way to discover that part of myself.
Yeah.
And to talk about voice, because you named that as well, and even viewing it as an instrument. It took me a really long time to realize that, even though I grew up around music, love choirs, by the way, to even adopt that, a vocal is an instrument. But when I was a kid, because I didn't communicate, that was the way that I learned communication, was listening to tone of voice. They say body language is also a part of that as well, but it's really tone, because you can hear hey y'all. It's just a difference. And I think being able to play with that has been my favorite pastime in my art, in understanding tones and setting the mood with your voice. There's always octaves you can play with. And that to me was what made me realize it is an instrument.
I'm just thinking of some of your work as you're talking about this, and how you really play with the tone. It sets the mood, it sets the stage, it takes you on the journey that you want to go on. I'd like to move us kind of through the process of creation towards putting the art out into the world. So I think when we talk about solo work, there is a tension between individual experience and shared experience, in that we have one voice telling a story, oftentimes a personal story, that resonates with many, many people. So when you create something that is deeply personal, how and even do you think about the audience? Who are you performing for when you take it to the stage? Are you performing for yourself, a specific community, the general public, a single person? How do you interpret audience in the process?
I have a question first. Did I answer the last question? I can't remember.
You did a little,
did?
I
Well,
think,
'cause
but you
it
can
also-
answer again.
It also felt like, what Aham was saying also felt like he was speaking for me. There's so many things that I identified with what you were saying on so many different levels. I also was a extremely high anxiety kid. Any major event in my life, I ended up getting sick beforehand because I was just so nervous about it. And I still deal with that anxiety in a lot of different ways. But for me, I really started to feel a bit more seen when I started seeing movies and started hearing music where I'm like, oh, there are other people that feel the same way too, and they're able to express it in this way. And because I didn't know how to express it and I was feeling so much, I was like, I need to make this film and I need to make this music, and maybe if folks can engage with that world that I've made, they would understand me, and I would also have more friends that also felt the exact same way. And when I started to see that and I started to feel that kind of realm come back, it kind of made sense, and all that art started to make a lot more sense. I think that answers your question. Can you ask that question again?
That you answered both questions
Okay.
again and one. It was amazing. So I was asking about when you create something that's deeply personal, how do you think about the audience?
Yes. So the audience for me is me first, but I'm also thinking about with the thousands of different pieces that I'm making, like there's this one piece that I know if I can make this that is shareable, I know that I can connect with these folks that I've been trying to connect with, and I've been failing to use those words. But if I have this show and I have this experience, I can now enter and be more seen and felt by those folks as well. So that's how I'm kind of approaching my art.
Very cool.
I like that. I don't care about the audience. I gotta be honest, I don't. I think as somebody who suffers from social anxiety and also anxiety as well, I don't think about it, because if I think about it, I won't do it. And I'm already fearful being that vulnerable anyways. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's so true. So I don't think about the audience. I definitely think about me first. And then obviously, depending upon what the performance is, whether it's a show of my own or a show that I'm hired for, I try to think about what the theme of it is. And I try to match emotional energy more so than think about what they're going to receive, if that makes sense, even though they're going to receive the emotions anyway. I tell everybody, I go on stage as a blank vessel and I just allow, I'm going to say it, God's spirit to move through me. I don't plan my sets. And even if I do want to use music, I have it in the background. So I'll talk to the sound people, because AV is so important to shows, and say, hey, I might change my mind here, or I might feel something here. Can you have these things queued up just in case? But I just allow the experience to weave towards where I'm at. Like, not weave towards where I'm at. I'm just allowing myself to allow spirit to move through me and let the poetry, the music speak through me in that moment, and then be able to give it out. But I don't really think about the audience, to be honest. It's a very selfish experience now that I'm thinking about it out loud, that I'm doing it for me. But
Can I just say that I think that even if you want to think that you would do it for the audience, like, that's death. Like, this death of art is to do it for the audience. Like, even if you wanted to, it would be bad for it. Like, so, you don't need to feel guilty about it. Like,
thank you. Because you said that, I'm going to take that with me. And that's it. I'm going, that's my time. But no, thank you for saying that, because it sounds very like self-centered when you say things like that, but it's so true for me. I'm just like, what you all are going to feel and what you're going to get it's almost like I'm trying to not live up to an expectation of what you all want and just giving you all of me in that moment. It's so vulnerable to share your art in the first place. So I feel like for me, that's a win. Like I've already won. If people resonate with it, that's great. But I also feel like most of the time going in it with that perspective, 9 times out of 10, I'm just trying to penetrate walls that you've built up so you can feel something. And low key, high key, I'm trying to trigger some people because there's some stuff in there that you don't realize is in there that you have to bring to the surface. So yeah, it's not always conscientious.
My first show, my first stage show, Now I'm Fine. It basically chronicled a lot of very difficult moments in my life, and then if you were to, give the show a thesis or like a point, it's just like about what we go through to feel okay during the darkest moments of our life. That's like kind of the idea of the show, and using my own experience to map that out. And that show kind of built my career that I have now, and it really allows me allowed me to keep going in that direction and keep making that kind of work because it was people really liked it. But there was one person that saw the show in Seattle, and they reached out to me later, and I didn't die in the show, obviously, because I'm still here, but this person reached out to me and they emailed me and they're like, I'm dying of cancer. Like, I'm gonna die very soon. And I just want you to know, like, that show made me feel better about it.
Wow.
I don't care about anything else. I don't care if I ever do anything else in my life. I don't care if no one else likes my work ever again. Like, and not that there have been other incredible moments that aren't specifically that, but like, that wasn't something I achieved by saying, I'm gonna make someone feel okay about having cancer. Like, that's not that's not something that you can go out. That's not something you can set out to do. You can't set out to do that. All you can set out to do is give truth and give honesty and give a piece of yourself. And it really is a piece of yourself, and it really does take a piece out of you. And that's all you can do. But to be able to have like any impact like that, even for a short period of time, like, that's, to be able to do that is the greatest thing. And for me, it's the greatest job you could ever have. Like,
Well said.
I would say that two things can be true. So I perform and I'm an artist and I create for me. Yes, hands down. I create because I need to. I create because there's nothing else that I would rather do than create. So yes, I do it for me. And yes, I do it for the audience. I think once I started to connect with my purpose in this world, which for me has resolved into resilience building. My goal is to be a resilience catalyst. My goal is to be as authentic in myself and my message and my voice and my stories that I hope that other Black men in the audience connect with their emotional self. I want that. I care about that. I'm brave in telling my authentic stories for that purpose. And I think I'm intentional and honest about myself and caring that I'm authentic, that I'm honest, that I'm vulnerable, that I share the spectrum of my emotional capacity in hopes that other cisgender Black men who may have never gotten any kind of other example like that are able to see themselves in me and tap into it and welcome my invitation to them to take on an artistic practice. I share that in my art and my performance. There's not a performance that I do where I don't say, I hope everyone in this room leaves here interested in diving into their own artistic practice for their self. So for me, I think I can both exist and know, like, and again, choose the life of a performer and an artist and everything that comes with that very hard life. And I get up and challenge myself and share myself in front of that audience for that purpose, for a hope that individuals are impacted by that.
I think it brings up an idea to me of like a very nuanced divide between a hope and a goal. Like something can be what you hope will happen. Something can be what overall you want to see in the world. But that could be different than your goal when you're sitting down and writing something.
Right.
And I think that I definitely have the hope that I'm reaching people and the hope that I'm touching people, but my goal is always just to make the best thing I can make.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And when it comes to performance, the other part of me, I think this is perfect for the multitudes because I'm also a curator. I book artists and bands. I do event production. So I also kind of look at performance as like what is the audience experience. So I think there's a nuance in there's a time and place as well. There's reading the room. There's understanding themes and thematic understanding of a performance that does take into account what that experience is going to look like. But true, like I'm not sitting down and like opening up a traumatic wound because I'm like, no, I need to fucking work through this shit. Like I need to like really like, I need to deal with this. I need to, grow. I need to challenge myself. I need to, whatever it is, I'm not doing that, for the audience. I'm definitely doing that for me, for sure.
I love that Tim just named the many hats that he wears because it's as soon as he said curator, I was like, oh, that changed. I do care about the audience. And what they do. When it's my art, I don't. But when it's a curated show and I'm putting artists on a bill, I'm thinking about what is the invisible thread that all of these artists have that they don't know that they have, and like what is the audience going to get from experiencing that. So it's really interesting. When it's me, I don't care. But when it's other people, I care.
This question is not on the question list, but you've got me thinking, do you consider the act of curation and curating a show solo art? Is that its own creative practice?
It can be, but I also think when I'm approaching I'm gonna let
No, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna let you cook because I feel like
I'm still.
Are you still cooking? Okay. I feel like it's a collective experience. Yeah, I completely lost it because I was like, oh, she has a question that's not on the questions that I did not look at. What is the question going to be? So it can be, though. Just like Tim said, both things can exist at once. Yeah. So it can be a solo performance depending upon, you got me stumped. For their set, yes. Collective experience altogether. I'm thinking in real time. I'm gonna let Cliff cook because.
My initial thoughts is like, for anyone who knows my career, like the only job I've ever had was working at the ICA, running the digital media programs for a few years, and I left there right around the time BLM was coming up, and the museum's response and museums' response across the world was not up to my satisfaction. And I think I've just always been kind of triggered by the idea of curators being artists, but mostly thinking about that in the idea of like what is high art. But I also recognize that I am a curator as well. So it's tough. I've become what I despised. What have I done? No, but I love it though, because I love being able to curate experiences looking back at a couple questions ago when you were asking about the voice as an instrument and voice creating art in this way, because like a big part of my background is that I'm Haitian and Dominican, and those two countries existing on the same island has always existed in me in a lot of different ways. And the Haitian in me is always like the revolutionary part of it, that is always trying to exist and fight back against what normal systems are. So my idea of being a curator has been, how can I go up against what our normal idea of what a curator is? And how can I feed this back into my community and create our own version of the ICA in Boston? Even though I still love the ICA, we just disagreed on certain things, as I do with many large corporations. Capitalism is weird like that. But I think curation can be art, but I also think it can also kill art as well.
Ooh.
Just for transparency, Cliff, Amanda, and Tim have all been community curators for Uncommon right across the street. So I was introduced to, well, Cliff and Tim mostly through community curation.
Well, I mean, to that too, a big reason why I left the ICA was like I was working with all these big artists, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm one of these big artists, and I want to be.
You
on
are
the
one of
side.
these big artists.
And a couple years later, I was at the ICA performing, and then I was like, all right, I know a bunch of other artists that should be on stages just like this. In 2019, Tim and I put together an event called Boston Answering, which was in a direct response to Boston Calling not booking local artists. And this is also speaking to, like, I wanted to be on Boston Calling, but it wasn't happening for me at that time. So I was like, we're going to make our own festival. We're going to put it in the hood in Upham's Corner, and we're going to book all of our friends that deserve to be on the stage. And a year later, Boston Calling came a-calling and was like, hey, how do we get all this bad press to stop? And then I was on Boston Calling like after the pandemic had passed. But the big change that I'm really proud of was because of that, there's now the Orange Stage at Boston Calling, where you have at least 15 to 20 different artists that are now performing at Boston Calling every single year. So I like to think that we have some kind of part in that, and being able to curate those artists and say, there's value here too.
Not some kind of part. It definitely made an impact. So we thank you for that, because it did not exist before you did that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad it does, even though I think that they can do better.
Oh, that's a whole nother panel discussion. We could dive deep on that one.
Just going to get us back on my question list. And I want to start with Aham for this one, because the show that Aham is doing, The Things Around Us, is so technically I don't understand what's going on stage. It's insane. Like the skill level is insane, what is happening. And when we're working in hybrid art, in multidisciplinary art, and one person is using a variety of tools on stage, there are things that don't work all the time. Looping could glitch. Spoken word might fall flat to a track. A genre mash might be confusing. So how do you approach failure or unexpected outcomes in your work? And what role does risk play in the process of developing a hybrid performance? So Aham, I'm going to field that to you first, with my brain just running through the things around us over and over again.
Yeah, so the things around us, it's all live looped. It starts with literally nothing. There's nothing pre-recorded. It just every sound that happens, I make right in front of you, and then it's manipulated through different pedals, and it's flipped backwards, it's slowed down, it's sped up, all those different things. But one of the things that I did to be able to make a show that feels cohesive and doesn't feel like, one of the issues that you're always fighting with looping is like, it can be slow. Like if you gotta like stay focused on moving it forward, on finding some kind of momentum. And so when I was developing the show, one of the things I did was like, each piece of music, how can I make the next piece of music out of the previous piece of music? So I did a ton of experimenting with like the looping pedal that I have, and if people don't know what looping is, it's basically a start button and then a stop button, and once you hit the stop button, it just loops the thing that you played, and then you can add to it. Sometimes you can subtract from it. So all this to say, like, so I by an hour into the show, I'm playing a piece of music that has been built up of different things that have been happening through the entire previous hour. And if I accidentally rest my foot on the wrong spot for 3 seconds, everything goes away. No way to recover it, just gone. Can't finish it.
Living on the edge.
Don't know what to do. So that is the real risk. There's no backup plan. There's no plan B. There's no and that's something that is absolutely terrifying. For one, you're dealing with like the power could glitch for a second, and then I'm screwed. I performed the show like around 50 times to audiences, and it's never happened. It has happened in rehearsal. So it's really terrifying. And what it has done for me is I've never worked as hard on something as I've worked on this show. It's like I absolutely, this is my favorite of all my shows. This is my favorite of all like the stage work that I've done. But in terms of like work for what you get out of it, it's like the least bit. Like, I had to put so much work in it to get out what it is. Like it took everything from me, and it took sitting in a room in my studio out in the woods literally every day, just going through all of the different motions, because in order to do this show, like when people ask me what's the hardest thing to do in the show, the hardest thing to do in the show is to be telling a story, basically doing comedy to the audience while I'm adjusting levels, turning knobs, doing specific things, and like not losing any connection with the audience. And the only way to do that is just doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. So that's been my process to deal with the risk of this show.
Does the thrill of failure or the risk of failure excite you, or does it terrify you more?
I stopped drinking. I don't want I don't want something else to mess it up. If I'm going to mess it up, it's going to be me. It's like,
So
I'm very focused. Like I practice it's really got my practice routine on. When it comes time to go on tour, I go in and I rehearse every single day, even though I've done the show by myself 100 times. Like, it's still, you gotta, and then the risk itself isn't exciting necessarily, but there is something about like just how real it is when I'm on stage. Like, it's very real. It could go very wrong. And in a way, it makes me very, very present and very like connected to what's happening.
You literally said the same answer the other night when I asked you the same question. And you also named that. What I found was interesting as an artist that goes in that does not have a plan. You were like, there's no improv at all. I have to be very, very structured.
There's areas for improv, but those areas are pre-structured. So like I have areas where I can improvise, but that area is in the same spot and that area is the same length, and that, so there are moments but even those are very carefully, constructed.
I can't wait to see this show on Friday.
It's so good. So good. Does anybody else have a reflection on risk? Tim? Yeah.
It sounded like you had something
Oh,
earlier.
Cliff?
I'm not sure.
Who, me?
Yeah. Are you?
No.
Okay.
It's scary. I think I'm still growing it and wanting to get to that that kind of consistency with my performance in the same way that Aham is at. Like, I'm looking up to you in a lot of different ways. Like, I stopped drinking a couple of years ago too for that exact reason. Like, I wanted to be in full control when I'm on stage and know exactly what's happening at every single time. Whereas before we used to like down bottles of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Of course, you'll be like, why did we mess up that song? Yeah, I think, and the reason why I asked that question, because I think that risk of failure is kind of what drives me right now. And it both excites me and it also terrifies me, but I think that's what keeps me good.
For me, it's a reminder of life. It allows me to stay grounded in the realities that like there's successes and there's failures in life, and I'm always taking risks. There's a decision or this decision, and I don't know what's on the other side of the decision. So the decision in and of itself is the risk. And there's like a couple pieces of like quotes in that Jim Carrey was doing a keynote for a graduation ceremony, and he was telling the story of his dad being an accountant, and his dad chose this very safe path, and his dad got laid off from his job, and what he learned was like, I can fail at something that I don't love to do, so why not try at the thing that I love to do? And I could fail in that too, but at least the thing I'm doing is the thing that I love to do. And I think me staying in my artistic practice has allowed me to remind myself of the ebbs and flows of life as well. And how do I pivot in order for me to live and thrive and exist at my best is to also hone my skills to navigate challenging times. How do I reinforce and build resilience in myself? So, my purpose being resilience building is really just me learning mechanisms and tools and systems to build for me, because I also live in a society and exist in a society that like has historically erased, harm, challenged, and wants to see me not exist or to see me shackled. So if anything, I need to make sure that I'm responsible for my life just as much as I'm responsible for my art, my artistic craft. And if I'm making the choice to like make this a living, I've only gotten better from trying and doing new things and seeing how people react to it and see how I react to it and saying like, oh, cool, this is the thing that I can like really put more energy into because I took the risk and it paid off. And then this other thing, like I took the risk and it didn't pay off, and I either like am gonna learn from that and dissect it and try to figure out like how do I remedy it, or I say like, oh, looks like that's not the path for me right now. I need to focus and lean into this other pathway.
I love that you said an accountant, because that's what I used to do for work before becoming a full-time artist. And I think for me, I've never been afraid of the risk except for this, being an artist. For me, that was the risk. So when I think about failure, I'm more afraid of like success than I am of failure. Like, to be completely honest, being an accountant was safe. As soon as you said that, I was like, that was me. I was an accountant for 10 years. I know, hard to imagine, right? But I love numbers. And for me, being an artist and jumping out of I tell my students all the time, being an artist is like jumping out of a plane and hoping that your parachute catches, because it's so different every single day. Like, you just don't know what's gonna happen. It ebbs and flows all the time. But for me, I think the safe fail for me was like, I could always go back to accounting. Like, that's always going to be there. No matter where I'm at in the world, I can always find a job as an accountant because my skills are still on point. I have to do taxes as an artist, which is terrifying. However, people... I forgot to give you a text. Didn't you ask me first? Anyways.
The artist's brain.
Listen, a little bit of ADHD too. But no, like for me, that is the risk, is getting up every single day. I love what I do, but I don't know what's gonna happen. And I think that's the fun part for me. If I wanted to play it safe, I could just go back to accounting and work in an office making six figures.
You brought up the term safe failure, which reminded me that like there are definitely days now where I'm actively searching failure. And I'm looking, and that's why I make so much art, is because I know out of the 1,000 songs that I make in a week, 600 of them are going to be trash. But in those pieces of art, whether I'm painting something or whatever, I know that through that failure, I'm like, okay, I know not to do that again, and I know not to do that again, and now I can go back and I can refine it even more. So through those failures, I'm able to learn a lot. So I mean, as much as I fear it, if I can create the space for myself to fail where nobody's looking, it really doesn't matter to me.
I could never imagine anything that you're making is trash, number one. I think
that's because I'm really good at presenting.
It's the presentation.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking what hit me when you said that was like, well, maybe in this moment, to you, they're not as up to par. But I think if you listen to them 10 years from now,
exactly,
you might fall in love with them again because you're just not in a space right now to appreciate it.
That's literally what Allen Ginsberg would preach. He would preach like, there's sometimes I would write and I have no idea what I'm even writing about. I don't know what it means. But when I look 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and I am able to like start crying because I'm like, I know exactly what I was saying there. I just didn't have the tools to understand it completely. And he like would identify that as like, that's what actual prophecy is when you are feeling something and you're able to identify that and recognize that, and label it as art or create it as art, and somebody else is able to feel that decades from now. It's like, oh, I still feel that and I resonate with that. That's what true prophecy was to Allen Ginsberg.
And that's timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have gone a little bit over, and can you believe we've only gone through half the questions? So I would love...
You wrote these really intense questions.
You all create really amazing art that I'm just so excited about, and I thought, here's my opportunity to ask them everything I want to know. But I want to make sure we do have time in case there is an audience question. So the question is, how do you incorporate feedback into the process?
So and this is just me, you know, coming from a background of stand-up comedy, that what's beautiful about that art form is it has feedback built into it. You know, I joke about stand-up that it's like the only art form that if you do a really bad job of it, you didn't even just do a bad job, you didn't even do it. You didn't even do comedy. You just went and talked to people on a stage. I trust that experience so much more than any kind of like kind of focus group type things where like let's get people's opinion. I think all of those are bad. I think they're always a bad idea. I think that you don't see like Michelin star chefs like grabbing someone off the street saying like, give me your opinion on this. Like that person doesn't know anything about it. Like, I don't like, there's no way that someone else knows what I'm going for or what I'm aiming for or what I'm trying to do. And I think a lot of times when people give feedback, they tell you what they think it should have been like, which is useless information. And that's what I love about, I develop a lot of my shows by doing stand-up, by going and doing a lot of open mics, and people will laugh or they won't laugh. And if they don't laugh, I know I have to figure something out. And I like my feedback to be involuntary on the part of the audience.
I love that answer because with comedy, you can't avoid it at all. You're absolutely right. I think for me, primarily with spoken word, the audience is usually quiet. And I used to have an issue with that because I would watch my peers and they'd get a go off poet and all this reaction. And I remember asking my now partner, for feedback, I'm like, well, what do you think about this poem? And what do you think about this poem? And I'm gonna swear, he'd be like, who gives a fuck? And I'd be like, no, but I want your honest opinion. And I'm like, nobody really reacted. And he would say to me, that's because they're listening intently. Like, you stop time almost in your performances. So you're not getting the go-off poet. It's a different feel when you go on stage. And also comparison, we talked about that earlier, is the thief of joy. And I was always like looking for feedback within the audience at the time. But what you said is absolutely true. Like, that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, when I was creating this piece, I know what I'm trying to do. But maybe somebody else, there's going to be a whole bunch of you in here that is going to be like, it's about this. This was what you were trying to do. This was, and you all might be wrong. So I think feedback from certain people, I do try to ask, like, what did you feel about this piece, or what hit you about this piece? But yeah, that's
A trusted circle is good.
Yeah, yeah, but it's not even a circle. It's more like a triangle.
Yeah, I try to look at how things exist on a spectrum for me and how I engage with it, in that depending on what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing, what I'm doing, I get to choose how much I value a particular aspect of my creative process and where I situate that. There might be, the very beginnings where I'm just like journaling, where I'm not necessarily concerned about feedback, versus if I'm putting together a manuscript to send in to, get published, then I care about having a particular peer edit it for me, because they might be able to see something that I don't see. So there's a lever there around feedback. And I even kind of I've learned from a professor a unique play on that term, which is like feed forward, and learning how to like communicate without the like, you should do this. Where I can tell someone how I feel about something, or how something made me feel, and they get to choose how they take that in. But I feel like feedback is a bit of a lever that I get to choose, because I started off being taught by someone. I learned this practice through individuals that I respect, that are carriers of the tradition that I'm learning. So I can't really understand how to take that torch without their feedback, without understanding the why or how, or even the technical aspect of what does excellence look like for me, and am I taking the time and respecting myself, this craft, and what I've been given to learn it, to explore it, to get better. So I care about getting that understanding. And when it comes down to like the performance and whether or not I care about audience feedback, I don't necessarily care about audience feedback, but it does show up in different things. Like slam poetry is me performing to an audience to get a number that tells me whether or not they liked the poem or not. It's a competition. So I do understand that when I go into that space actively as an artist, I'm not just showing up as an artist in terms of my art form, but I'm also in a game. Like I'm the environment that I've entered exists in that feedback. So I have to respect that space enough to say like, yo, how am I paying attention to how the audience is responding to poems? If I care about winning the slam, then I'm going to care about how the audience responds and choose what I perform. But the beautiful thing is that I'm multitudes and my art is the same no matter what the piece is. So I don't have to worry about whether I'm being authentic or not in terms of like, I'm doing this poem because the audience is like saying this, but all of my poems are mine. So I'm showing up authentically regardless of what poem I perform in that moment. And I also care about winning. So I know like, this audience responding to these types of poems. So I'm going to pull that kind of poem out and do it because I care about that particular moment. And I get to, again, pick and choose when that shows up. That might not be the same if I've been hired to do a solo performance and I'm putting together my own set list and so forth. I don't care about what the audience is going to, like, I'm doing that because that's the moment. in a way. Yeah.
One thing I've been doing this a really long time, for my age, and I've had many, 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 many times that people have come up to me after shows and been like, "Hey, would you like a little feedback?" And the answer is 100% no, never. And like, if you look at those moments, and you really stop and think about it, and you think, okay, there's two possibilities here: that this complete stranger has my best interest in heart,
Right.
really wants to help my career, really wants to see me flourish, or there's a weird thing that upset their ego and they want to try and make me feel bad in a weird way for a second so they can feel a little bit better. What are the odds? Which one do you think it is? It's usually the second one, and I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
I'm also glad that Tim brought up slam poetry, though, because I feel like that's like a sporting aspect. Like it's competitive. Like you know what type of thing you're going into. It's almost like training for the NBA. Yeah.
Cliff, I want to make sure if you have a response before I release everybody to a hot chocolate bar.
I used to seek feedback a lot. Until I realized I was really good at what I did.
I love that.
But also the feedback that I was getting was just slowing down my process and just confusing me. And art is subjective. And a lot of what I do is pouring my heart and mind into something. So feedback is usually like, well, are you happy? Like that's like or are you depressed or like? So that feedback is like I can get that feedback from my therapist, but when I do look for feedback, it's on a very specific technical thing that I may not fully understand and that somebody else understands better than me. So like, is the color correction on this video that I did right? Or is the EQing on this specific drum right? And I think that saves everybody's time. Like if I came to someone who was like, "Hey, what do you think of this song?" What is the feedback actually going to be helpful for? And are they able to give me the feedback that is helpful for me as well? But for like certain things, like for like my paintings or for sculptures or for films like that, I'm oftentimes like never looking for feedback because I know that the experience that people have with a film or the experience that people have looking at a painting is always going to be drastically different person to person. So like if I needed feedback, I need to get 6 billion people's feedback to actually get something that's valuable.
I would love to thank GBH's Forum Network for capturing tonight's event so this important conversation can reach broader audiences here in Boston and far away. So thank you so much. And please join us for Hot Chocolate and continue to talk to our amazing panelists as they drink hot chocolate too.
And thank you, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you.